Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Game Development Log video diary, and this week I finished off the Level of Detail editor tool and finally started work on the world editor itself. So I'll just quickly show you the finished Level of Detail editor tool, and I added a load of settings for the preview here so that you can choose a texture to test on the model. You can see the model in wireframe mode, you can move the player further or closer to the model, and you can make the camera zoom in or out to check how noticeable the switching between levels of detail is. Over here on the right you can add levels of detail, and when you set them now they get added to this list, allowing you to edit or remove them whenever you want. And finally I added an auto calculate option where you can set the starting error margin, the error margin increase per level of detail, and then it calculates all of the levels of detail automatically. And we can use this force level of detail option to preview these simplified versions without having to move the camera. Let's now move on to something a little bit more interesting, which is the new world editor. I haven't added many options yet, but I have done a lot of work programming a lot of the important features that I'll be needing. So at the top we've got a load of tabs here for all the different things that we'll be able to add and edit in the world when I'm finished, but for now they don't actually do anything. In the preview you can see the current world, and I've got some basic movement set up so you can move around with WASD, and you can change the rotation of the camera with the mouse. So at the moment it works a bit like an FPS camera. One of the most important new features that I worked on this week was mouse picking. I programmed a function that converts the mouse cursor's position on the screen to a 3D position on the terrain in the 3D world. So that means that my program will always now know the point on the terrain that the mouse is pointing to, and so I can do things like this where I render an entity at that calculated point, which allows you to drag objects around on the terrain with the mouse. And using this same function I prepared for allowing the user to select certain things in the 3D world. So here you can see that the terrain tile that the mouse is currently pointing to is highlighted, which will be useful for selecting which terrain tile you want to edit. And here you can see me using the same idea to select actual entities. And next week I'll make it so that the user can select entities that are already in the world and then edit, delete or move them around. And finally this week I started work on allowing the user to add entities into the world. At the moment you have to choose which entity to place by scrolling the mouse wheel, but I'll make it easier to choose an entity next week. Then you can rotate the entity by pressing R and place the entity by right clicking. And I'll obviously add loads more placement and editing tools for entities next week, but for now this works quite nicely. And that is it for this week. Next week I'll be adding a load more features to the world editor and hopefully getting quite close to finishing it off. I'll hopefully be releasing the whole development kit in around 3 to 4 weeks time, so remember to get in touch if you're interested in using these tools to help create content for the game. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and IndieDB for extra updates during the week. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a brilliant week and I will see you all next time.